Hello, everybody. Welcome to a special Hurricane edition of the Rogue Deck Chronicles. My name is John, and not sitting across from me, but still with me here is Dean. Say hi, Dean.
Welcome from Wesley Chapel.
So, yeah, for those of you that don't know, we have a major hurricane coming towards the Tampa Bay area. So, we are actually trying for the first time to record the podcast virtually and see how this goes here. So, if there are some audio hiccups or anything like that, please bear with us here. This is our first time trying to record it in this format. So, hopefully, we don't have too bad of an issue with that. But with that being said, we are doing a special hurricane theme here today. I think our Rogue Deck of the Week is going to be geared towards that. We'll talk about some other stuff towards that here. But yeah, so for today's podcast, we are planning on talking about the special event that happened in Lima. Also, we participated in a local challenge this past weekend, so we'll talk about the metagame that we saw there and the results there, and then we'll go into trivia and then our rogue deck of the week. So, Dean, you want to start off by talking about what we saw with the meta in Lima?
So, those who don't know, this past weekend we had a special event in Lima, Peru, down in the Latin America region. It was won by the Terrapagos EX Dustmar deck, piloted by Giovanni Sasso. One interesting fact that I heard about this player is that this is his first year in Masters. So he is a brand new brand new master player. Just graduated up from the senior division, and he takes it down playing this deck. That's impressive for a first year master.
Yeah.
And then in second place it was Raging Bolt. So I figured those two, that must have been a good match because those are pretty even when it comes to matchups in this format. With the Trap Goes Desalar deck, it's a traditional one. It doesn't play the Boufflant. It's more about the attacking, getting the Noctowl out with a 4-4 line of the Noctowl Hoothoot, 3 of the Turtles, 2 Fan Rotoms, and they do play the 101 Pidgeot line to get all that out with the Area 0 under Death's Stadium. And obviously it plays the Duskar, which is only a 3-2, so they don't even have the Dusclops in there. So that's interesting. That's something I haven't really seen a lot of, but I'm sure this is just a adaptation from Dortmund.
Yeah, I mean, I can see that because I think most of the Dortmund lists were running a 2-2 Pidgeot line, and this is only running a 1-1, and it's running 4 rare candies. So you're only going to use one of those rare candies on the Pidgeot line. So I can see taking out the Dusclops and just running the 3-2 for the Dusknoir there.
Yeah, you really only need to use the curse ability once or twice just to get those KOs that you're just a little short of with the Trap Goose. Because you're only with a full bench, you're only doing 220.
Yeah,
So unless you're getting like one of the support mons, you need that extra boost from the Dustmore.
yeah. But then we also saw in the top 8, we saw 4 out of the 8 top decks be some sort of Dragapult build. So
Yeah,
that's kind of interesting there. We also saw a regular Charizard Pidgeot build. We unfortunately don't have the deck list there, so I'm wondering if they were playing some Dust Noir in there. I would assume that they would. Most of the newer the Charizard decks within this meta are playing that at least a 1-1 line of Dust Noir. But and then we also saw a Guardy. Again, unfortunately missing the deck list for that, but I would probably assume that it's a Turbo Guardy with this kind of format. Regular Guardy takes a little bit more time to get set up, and especially with a whole bunch of Dragapults, you don't have time with those Curlias and to really get built up there.
Yeah, I agree with you. It's most likely a turbo build. If you look at the Dragapult list, they even play the Radiant Alakazam now. So being a slower setup deck, it's not really the best strategy in this turbo format. They're probably playing the Rare Candies evolved into the Gardevoirs right away, and they're probably playing a lot of basic attackers because you can play the single prize game really well with Guardy and not really miss a beat. But with four Dragapults, that was a uh, hard top cut for that player. So I can see why they didn't make it past the top eight. But still, top eight in a special event is pretty good.
Oh yeah, and we actually see a pretty big build out here of Chileans actually being in the top eight. Five out of the top eight were from Chile, two are from Peru, and then the Giovanni who took it is from Brazil. I mean, being that Peru is right above Chile, it kind of makes sense, but still kind of interesting to see that a huge portion of the top eight was from Chile. So Chile making a uh, strong surge here. This the start of the season and the end of last season.
Yeah, that country is definitely showing that they have top players ready and eager to go to Worlds. And this kind of shows it. Like they came in large numbers. Like you said, this is a neighboring country in South America. But yeah, they did well, and I want to say it looks like one, two, three of the four or three of the five played the Dragapult. So I'm wondering if some of them were testing partners, or if all of them were. I know there are different builds of it, but the fact that they all came in with this like a similar list is also impressive too.
Yeah, definitely agree with that. But one of the things that I think you and I should probably touch base on here is a couple of comments that we saw going across socials, and I think we can talk about it here as from I think possibly from three perspectives. One being players ourselves, two being professionals, like we aren't, and I don't mean professional Pokemon players. I want to clear the air on that one very quickly. What I mean by that is actual working professionals in our day jobs, and then three being professors to the game as well. A lot of comments have been coming in stating that people are from other regions are upset that the North Americans seem to be going to other regions and quote unquote taking points away from other regions by going and qualifying in special events or placing high in special events and regionals in other areas. And so a comment has been made that maybe regionals and special events should be locked down and that by region, and that the only events that you should be able to go to outside of your home region are the internationals. So, what is your take on that?
So I see it both sides. Um, I know a lot of this came from this special event in particular because Latin American players they don't have a lot of tournaments to go to compared to us historically. I actually looked at the website. They have a pretty good amount of tournaments going on this season, but in the past they have not. They only get maybe 4 or 5 tournaments. If they're lucky, they'll get into the LAIC, but historically it's hard for them to go to events versus the North American players. We had a bunch of events last season,
Right.
and it's fairly reasonably priced to go to a lot of them, depending where you live in the United States or Canada. So the fact that these players have the resources to go to these tournaments where other players, this may be their only tournament of the year, it can rub people the wrong way. But at the same time, with how this season is, and you have to get a top X place in your in your region, it's a little bit cutthroat too. Like you have to go to as many events and put yourself in the best situation as possible to get top X. And a good example of that is Brent Tonneson. He is an Australian player. They do not have a lot of regionals. Right now, they only have two. So
Right.
he's flying all over the world, top cutting and even winning some events outside of Australia. But no one's saying anything about him because of his situation. But also, he's a very good player. He's one of the top players in the world. So I think it comes down to where this is, and that a lot of the top North American players, it feels like they're just taking, like we said, they're taking points away. But luckily in this event, none of them got top 8. I think the closest North American player was Zach Lesage at 16, exactly 16. So our argument can be nullified really because the North American players are trying to get these wins in these regionals, but the local players are showing up and outplaying these top players. I think that's awesome.
My stance on it may be a little different. I mean, most of the main points I would say coincide with yours. I think the difference is some of the comments that I saw were making statements towards that North Americans have more resources to get to these other events out of their region. And that point specifically I have to disagree with. I went down, I mean, you and I have talked about this, but for the larger audience, I had a international internship in Santiago, Chile when I was in college. And that was back in the late 2010s. And back then, my round trip flights were almost $1,000 a piece. So maybe that was just the time frame that I was gone, but even looking at it, I pulled it up on Google Flights. It's still northwards of $500 to $600 for a round trip flight from Santiago for a weekend. So going to Lima, that's probably going to maybe take off 50 to $100, but still spending $600 on a round trip flight for a weekend, especially one that is normally the flight from Miami is overnight. That's not that's not a fun weekend. That's not a, hey, I'm going to take a late flight Thursday, be able to register Friday. That's an overnight flight. Those are not, for those who have never taken an overnight flight, those aren't comfortable flights.
Yeah.
so, so I wouldn't say that our resources there are more vast or more available because us sitting here as working professionals, I don't know if I don't have 700 dollars to drop on a round trip flight. Then let alone airfare. I mean, food and hotel. Like that's close, rising up to $1,000 there for one person. Like, I don't
And
know.
that
I don't know if that argument really has its worth and salt there.
Yeah, and that
But
doesn't include taking PTO or anything like that. As like you said, we're working professionals.
right.
I can't just go up and leave. I have to go to a job the next day.
Right. And so if we're gonna focus the argument more on those main groups that did go, I know we saw I think most of the top people from the Shuffle Squad went. Um, I think there was one other group that I saw posts from that went, but overall, I don't see an argument for the vast resourceness that they say we have. The other thing is from a professor standpoint, I can go two ways. One, if you want to drive competitiveness like Pokemon is trying to drive, then having people from other regions that are top players from other regions will drive your region to perform better. If you're playing the same people day in, day out at these regionals and the top people or special events and the top people are the same top people every time, how are you going to get better if you're one of those top people? You
Mm-hmm.
need to be playing other competition. You need to be seeing how other people are playing the meta. to be able to drive better performance. And that's one of the things that I personally have a gripe against the Japanese not having the same structure as us. Because unless they have the ability to go to a regional like we just saw, they're playing in a completely different format from us. And yes, the conversion rate to Worlds tends to be okay for the Japanese, but it still doesn't drive that same type of competitiveness that TPCI is doing. So, in my opinion, there's the fact that you could have more competitiveness that way by allowing the more competitive people, or the people that have the opportunities that are still competitive, to go to those out of region or out of region special events or regionals. Now, from the flip side of that, what I can also see is you can go, putting a rule in place that you can go to other regionals, but unless you win the regional or special event outside of your region and therefore get an automatic bid, your points don't count towards your overall standings. I could see that coming into play because one person finishing in the top 30, and the way you would do it is just like they're doing 4 finishes. If you get your automatic bid, whether you were top 4 at Worlds this past year or if you win a regional, instead of being included in that top 125 count, you get X'd out. So if you don't place first at a special event, then if you're out of the region, you get, yes, your placement still stands, but for points, you get removed from the points list. Does that make sense?
Because with that model, it encourages competitiveness and the more competitive players to go to these other regions, but it doesn't give consequences to the other players if they don't do well because of these foreign competitors.
Right.
For this event, we didn't really see that. The top player from outside the region got 16th, so they got points, but at a special event, that's pretty. I'm not sure how much top 16 will get out of only 300 players.
Right.
But the one thing to also realize with special events over regionals, you're not getting cash prizing.
Right.
This is pure points, and I think they're allowed to give out packs, but there's no cash prizing with these type of events.
So the only drive for it currently is the points. So it would, if you took that as like a, hey, if you win it, cool, you get your bid to Worlds, but if not, you're not really getting anything besides packs. I think if you took away the points, it would remove the incentive. I was looking for the word there. The incentive to go to those special events. So it would still drive the competitiveness to possibly, like, hey, there's only 300 people registered for this. I'm going to go try. But maybe it would also reduce that incentive for out-of-region areas. Just a thought there. Not that we have any say to what TPCI does there.
Yeah, and I think this brings on a larger conversation because normally this only happens when around the special events specifically. No one really has these comments when it comes to regionals, but if special events and regionals have more or less the same top prize, which is an automatic invite to Worlds, why aren't we having this same conversation last weekend with Dortmund, with Roll Ready getting second place, and a bunch of other top players getting top 32, top 64, even top 6 or top 8,
and a Japanese person winning.
Yeah. So why aren't we having that conversation about Dortmund, which is practically the same situation? We have someone outside of that region come in and win the whole entire event. Granted, having a Japanese player do it is awesome because their road to Worlds is a lot harder than ours.
Right.
There's no doubt about that. But for fairness of this topic, why aren't we saying something about the European regionals in special events? Why is it only whenever we have these events in the Latin American region or even like Puerto Rico or stuff like that, like these lesser known played or lesser played areas? Why is it only then?
No, I agree. So, just a discussion point. I mean, as we said, we're shooting ideas out. But if you guys have any ideas, definitely reach out to us, talk to us about it. But like we said, there's a lot of discourse about this that TPCI could probably do a little bit better with handling, but we all know that TPCI tends to keep their hands off a little bit there with those. So,
And really, this isn't that big of an issue. By and large, only a couple players from outside of these regions are going to these events. I'm sure if we look at the number of attendees at this special event in Lima, 80-90% of them are from the Latin American region. This, like we said, this is just more of a discussion point, something that was brought up in the Twitterverse in the Pokemon community, and we thought it was worth talking about. And if y'all have opinions on it, let us know. We can always have another episode about this.
yep.
Hey all you rogues out there, we just wanted to take a quick second to say thank you to our sponsor For Honor and Glory. They are a great support to us and have all the things you need related to Pokemon, Magic, D&D, Warhammer, and more. You can go over to forhonorandglory.com and use discount code ROGUE24. That's discount code ROGUE24 at forhonorandglory.com for 10% off your entire online order. Alright, let's get back to talking about those sneaky decks.
All right, so next topic on our agenda here is the challenge that happened this weekend. Dean, you want to start off with how
I was there. I was there.
And I got my first place win.
Yay!
Woo! So I replaced a top finish for challenges. So I now have a 1, a 2, a 4, and an 8. So if I did my calculations right, that puts me at 45 points now. So
Doing much better than me this season.
yeah, I mean it's only the beginning of the season. I'm already almost at what I finished last season with, so I will take it. So actually, I think I finished. Did I finish 50 or 40? I think I finished 50, so I'm almost at where I finished last season with, so I'll take it. But so round 1, Dean, what did you play up against round 1?
Against a Regidrago deck.
Okay.
And that was a train wreck for me.
And you were what deck did you take to the tournament this weekend?
I played the cloth deck still. I didn't really have anything else ready with Stellar Crown yet. I'm still waiting for some cards to come in for some of my new decks, so I went with the Old Faithful. What about for you?
I took the Goldango deck that we talked about last week as the Rogue deck of the week. And for those that don't know, we're going to talk about this a little bit more a little later on in the session here. But I also put up a overview of the Rogue deck of the week, quote-unquote showcase, onto our YouTube channel. So I'll start putting the link for the YouTube channel in the show notes as well. But I did play some games on PTCG Live, and I made a really good comeback on against a Lugia. So I put that up as the showcase there and kind of talked about what lines we would play, why we would play those, stuff like that. So we're going to start trying to do that a little bit more. We'll talk about that a little bit more here after this section of the podcast. But yeah, so I took that Goldango deck that we did as the Rogue deck of the week, and I ended up hitting a Hydrapple deck. That is the first Hydrapple that I've seen at a tournament since Stellar Crown became available. And I unfortunately played up against a guy who was his first tournament ever and donked him.
Yeah, I was talking to him. I kind of encouraged him to play that deck.
Oh yeah, because you got to For Honor before I did, so I got it there like right before we were starting. But yeah, I mean it wasn't a bad Hydrapple's not a bad deck, and his build was not horrible. It just didn't. I think he needs more time with it, because some of the choices that he made were a little interesting, to say the least. But yeah, so I got a donk on him within, I think it was 2 turns. I donked him. He didn't have anything on the bench. Um, I think at turn 2 he did get a um, bug catching scent and whiffed it. So that didn't really help him much there. And all he had was the Diplin in play, and so I was able to make it rain with 2 energy for the knockout. So that's how I got my round 1 win. How did I know you said that going up against the Regidrago was not your forte there, but what happened there?
So Red Drago is actually a pretty decent matchup for Claw, but it only works if you draw your energy. I went through like 70% of my deck before I saw my first energy card. And they were prized. Only one was prized, so I should have saw something. But my first turn, Um, I was stuck with a boss and a Color's Tenacity in my hand, and I had to get that out just so I can continue building up my board state. And he played the Kyurem, and
Oh no.
that was it. Yeah, I had no other. It was either I don't discard and like have nothing on my board, or squawk and seize and try to get what I needed, and I just whipped everything.
Wow.
And then the next turn, I literally, I think I looked at 20 cards in my deck, and even he made a comment. He was like, "You're still whipping the energy." I'm like, "I'm still whipping the energy." He was like, "That's just bad, man." I'm like, "I know," and he just did the
Wow.
spread damage on my board and just got me after that. I couldn't do anything.
Wow. Yeah, that's just not good luck for the cloth deck there. All right, so then we went to round 2. I ended up on stream against Matt, the guy that you played round 1.
Mm-hmm.
So I ended up playing Regidrago. He prized 2 of his 3 Dragos.
That
Yeah, I don't know what happened there, but yeah, he prized 2 of his Dragos, and after I was sitting there, and after his turn 1 with no Drago on the bench, and I'm 95% sure he squawked and seized. No, no, I'm thinking of my next match. Sorry. Uh, yeah, he did not he did not get to the Drago, and I'm sitting there going, "Am I gonna get away with this?" Because there was a Kyurem sitting in the discard, and there was no Drago turn 1, and so I think he had Tatsugiri in the active, and so I knocked that out. But yeah, it was it was definitely interesting, that's for sure. What about you? What did you play round 2?
against Ancient Box.
Okay.
So with that, it's single prize versus single prize. The big disadvantage for me is that I have to play multi-prize Pokemon to get my board set up. So at first, I was in the lead. I was knocking out all his Roaring Moons. Every one he put up there, I can easily knock it out. But then I got too far ahead. He counter catchered me up, got out my Fezandipiti, got out my Squawkabilly, and he just came back and won it. It's just one of those games where he didn't need his multi-prizers, and I do, and he just took advantage of it. So he played that game really well.
Yep. That definitely is. That definitely is the downfall with Cloth, I would say, is because you definitely are normally trying to go up against two prize decks and take those easy knockouts um, with the one prizer. But yeah, that's unfortunate there. We normally don't see anybody else playing Ancient Box except for you, so it was interesting to see somebody else playing it.
Like for me, it's good because I know what that deck does because I played it for so long. And this guy, I talked to the guy afterwards. He doesn't have a home shop. He just goes around. He's trying to get his Worlds invite. So he's a nice player, nice guy. But yeah, it's just I struggle with single prize decks. It's basically whoever gets the first prize wins. But playing from behind is what Ancient Box does the best.
Yep. And then final round, round 3. We only had 3 rounds because there were only 8 masters, a senior and a junior. I ended up playing against our friend Wilson. He was playing Raging Bolt. He prized one of his 3 Raging Bolts, and it was a really close game. Like, we were going back and forth. I think we each had 2 prizes left, and I was sitting there like, okay, please don't get this Raging Bolt back. Please don't get this Raging Bolt back. He went until he maybe had like 5 or 6 cards like in his deck left. He was drawing as best as he could, and he missed the Night Stretcher to bring the Raging Bolt back. And I got lucky. So that's I think that happened kind of twice because I got lucky with that, and then in my round 2 match, Matt actually Iono'd me the last turn down to 2, and Cypher I top decked the Cypher Maniac off of the Iono. So I was able to Cypher Maniac for the Prime Catcher and the Superior, which with what I needed. So it was it definitely is running 3 Cypher Maniacs in Goldango is the move. Like, I haven't been running that up until this point. I've been running more Iridas, but the Cypher Maniac getting me exactly what I need when I need it is definitely something to consider in there. So, but like I said, I played Wilson, and it was a close match. Who did you end up playing round 3?
The Hydrapple player that you went against round 1.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, so fun. It was a fun match. He's a nice guy. Very new. Oh, not new to the game. He's returning from a long hiatus.
Right.
So we got to talk a little bit. It was actually pretty stally. Neither of us were drawing what we needed. I just happened to draw what I needed first and went from there. Like, he had a good setup too. Like, he got 3 Teal Mask out. He got his Applin out. But he just wasn't drawing what he needed. He couldn't get the Deplin. He couldn't get the Rare Candy. And luckily, I was able to get my DTE. I played the Petron to kind of just damage out that way. And it took about 15 minutes for us to play our match. And a lot of it was us just like goofing off. We're at the bottom table. It didn't matter who won, really.
Yeah.
But it was fun. Nice guy. Can't wait to see how he grows. And he said he's going to come around a lot more. So I'm excited to get to know him a little more throughout the next couple weeks and tournaments. And that's what I think Pokemon is all about, is getting these newer players into the competitive realm and having them come back week after week.
Yeah, I definitely agree with that. Unfortunately, having a hurricane come through multiple times in the span of a month is a little hard on keeping people coming back. But yep, so that was our tournament. Yeah, so finally avoided that, first place curse there. Told Wilson, because Wilson was one of the people that I ended up tying for first place with across the board with the way that Tom does the resistance, so opponents wins and opponents wins. One time I ended up in a tie with 3 people, and Wilson was one of them, and he ended up getting first, and I ended up getting third on the coin flip. So I was like, all right, you owed me for that one, man. So, so I finally got the first place there, but definitely driving strong with the Goldango. I mean, I've got a couple other decks that we've been talking about that I've been building, but I'm definitely going to drive. That Goldango has gotten me 3 out of my top 4 placements. So I kind of think I need to stick with the Goldango for a bit.
Goldango gets better the next either
know.
this set or the set after that with that new ace spec coming out with energy.
Yep. So I'm definitely going to keep driving with this. But all right. So, as we mentioned during that last segment here, we do also have a YouTube channel. We have been putting our podcasts episode up on the YouTube channel. We are going to start doing a little bit more with that. We are, as I said, I did the showcase for Goldango last week. We're going to try, barring availability to do so with the Hurricane here coming through, we are going to try and do showcases of the rogue decks of the week going forward. We're also going to try and start also commentating some of the tournaments that For Honor and Glory hosts, because they do put the stream up live. So we may take those videos and commentate over those a little bit. This next one will be a little bit of an interesting take because I was on stream 2 out of the 3 rounds. So we'll take Dean's perspective of the plays that I was doing and how I was moving through and see what his comments are on that from both sides of the board there. But we'll try and do that. So definitely pay attention to the YouTube channel. We'll put those up here so that way you guys have the ability to follow on that. So there's that. But I think next is trivia. Are you ready for that, Dean? All right. So, if I remember correctly, currently the scoring is 12-6 with Dean in the lead. I believe last week we both got the answer correct. So, Dean, do you want to go first this week or do you want me to go first?
So you mean guess first or ask first?
Ask first.
I'll ask first. I have one. I
Okay.
think, yeah. Okay. John.
Yes.
$1 million. What is the only non-legendary genderless Pokemon that can learn Attract?
Non-legendary genderless?
Yep.
Oh, dude. I have no clue. So, just a reminder and refresher on the rules here. You get no hints. You get 3 guesses. If you get it on any of the 3 guesses, you get all 3 points. Oh, no. Yeah, so if you get it on the 3 guesses, you get the 3 points. But you get no hints. So, it's all or nothing here. So, genderless Pokemon. And I promise I'm not cheating. You would hear me if I was typing trying to figure this out. So, genderless Pokemon. I have no clue. I'm gonna say Ralts, but I know that's wrong.
It's wrong. That they actually have a gender.
That's what I figured.
Because that's how the evolution goes. It's based on their gender.
Right. Does the Clefairy line have a gender? I'm going to say Clefairy Clefable line.
Don't know if that has a gender or not. I haven't paid attention.
Okay, but that's not the answer. Okay.
Nope, it's not the answer.
All right. Final answer is going to be Dubwool. Just to throw it out there.
No, that's not correct. It doesn't need a track for us to love that Pokemon.
It's so fluffy.
It is fluffy. And it's not like Go-Go or Skidoo where everyone forgets about it.
Right? So,
That was
what is the answer?
The answer is Cryonicle or how do you pronounce that Pokemon?
I'm giving you a blank space, like a blank face here. I have no clue which one you're trying to say.
Cryonal.
Crabonable?
Okay, I think it's spelt wrong in the website I'm using. I'm trying to see Cryonal. It's that the Pokemon looks like a snowflake.
Oh, okay.
I'm sure I'm butchering the name.
Okay, I know which one you're talking about now, though. Okay.
I'm trying to find a pronunciation on it. Cryonicle. Yeah. It's the one that looks like a snowflake. It's genderless, but it can learn Attract. I believe, if I remember correctly, it can Attract, but it fails because it doesn't have a gender. Because the point of the move
is to attract the opposite gender, yeah. All right, Dean, so are you ready for your question?
I am.
All right, so I'm going to ask you a question about your favorite Pokemon here, and I'm going to be very surprised if you don't know it, but I'm going to try and stump you with this.
You're probably going to stump me. I don't know much about, like, Pokemon specifically, so...
All right, Scyther, sorry, now you got me butchering names. Scyther and Scizor both have the exact same base stat total. What is that total?
I know that too. I know they have the same total because Scizor was introduced in Gen 2, Scyther was introduced in Gen 1, and it was actually a pretty good Pokemon in both generations. And I believe Kleavor actually has the same base stat total as well to continue with that thing. But I am bad with numbers. I don't even know what's a good base stat number, too. That's the worst part. And I don't do VGC. So Wilson, if you're listening to this, I know you got into it. You need to tutor us on VG stats. So I'm going to say 440.
Nope.
Yeah, I knew that was wrong. I won't know if I'm too high or too low. Do I have to say it exactly, or am I going to get a plus or minus with this?
I'll give you plus or minus 10.
That's fair. 10 is actually pretty fair. 380.
Nope.
$410?
Nope. You were low every single time. It was 500.
I was thinking 550, but I'm like, no, that sounds too high. But yeah, I don't know anything about stats.
It's 500 even, and the thing is that they have the flip of each other. So Scizor actually has higher attack and defense, but Scyther has faster speed.
That makes sense. Scyther is a pretty fast Pokemon.
So, all right, well, that was trivia. Neither one of us got it this week. So point totals are remaining 12 and 6 with Dean in the lead there.
John finally stumped me. Only took you a couple months.
A couple months?
Or is it just a month?
It's been a month and a half, maybe.
So for those who don't know, John, when we first started doing this, Joe and John and I went out to dinner after we recorded, and they just try to get me on this trivia, and I answered every single one of their questions.
Yes, so finally able to stump you. But the funny thing was is that Joe and I were using the same source page for the trivia question, so that didn't help us there. But all right, so the next thing that we are going to go into is our always favorite section, the Rogue Deck of the Week. And this time we're actually going to come back to, I believe it was our first Rogue Deck of the Week that we ever did. It was either the first or the second.
This is the first ever Rogue Deck of the Week.
But it's updated.
It is updated, and it's very, what's the word? Appropriate for our situation, potentially.
Yes. So as we said, this is a hurricane-themed episode because we're staring Milton down in the face here as it reaches towards Florida here. And so this deck is a no energy deck. And we figured
Just like
that's probably what we're going to be experiencing here in the next couple of days. So probably when this podcast is available, we will have no energy. So we figured that was a pretty appropriate deck to kind of go for the Rogue Deck of the Week this week. And so we need to thank once again LDF for kind of putting this up there, because I would love to sit here and have time to figure out all these different deck combinations that we love playing, but a lot of the times we are going to pull these decks from other content creators just because they have more time to be playing around with these. But yeah, it is a Conkeldurr deck that has no energy. And why is that, Dean?
So it has an attack called Gutsy. I probably
Gutsy Swing.
Gutsy Swing. So it's typically one fighting, 3 colorless.
Yes.
But if the Pokemon is affected by a special condition, it ignores all energy requirements. So you pair it off with our favorite Brute Bonnet card.
Our favorite mushroom.
Yeah. You see, VGC has a Moongus. We get Brute Bonnet. It's just fair.
Actually, with the last set, we finally did get an Amoonguss, I believe.
Well, I mean, Amoonguss has always been good in VG because of the spore effect.
Right.
So they can keep using Amoonguss over and over again. We're just going to recycle the Brute Bonnet card over and over again. It's just fair.
Yep.
So you use the Brute Bonnet to poison the Conkeldurr, kind of like in the cloth deck, and then you're hitting for 250 damage flat.
But wait, there's more.
Oh yeah, there's much more. So you pair it off with the Binding Mochi, then that brings up to 290. You have your good friend Hisuian Sneasler with the Radiant form of it, and then you do 30 more damage to that. So
checkup.
Yeah, during checkup. So you can do 320 damage before your opponent can draw their card their next turn.
And the reason that I bring it up on checkup is because there is a very important wording in cards that is a big card being played in most decks right now as a support Pokemon. Because I was playing up against a oh my gosh, Dragapult. There we go. I'm needing coffee or something right now, but I was playing up against a Dragapult, and that is perfect math for the Dragapult. Is 320 on checkup, and they had a Fezandipiti on the bench, and they couldn't use Fezandipiti because Fezandipiti states that the Pokemon has to be knocked out on your opponent's last turn. And since it gets knocked out on checkup, that doesn't activate.
Very important because you're preventing your opponent to get more cards that they can see during their play. Granted, Dragapult sees a lot of cards already, but preventing any deck from drawing 3 more cards, that is crucial in this format because everyone is so reliant on combos and using the cards to get what they need. You're preventing resources for them to use. And that's part of why Cloth was so well too, because it kind of followed that same strategy. And one thing I want to highlight about this list is that it actually features 2 supporter cards that you don't normally see. And we both had a chance to play around with it, and I thought they were really cool mechanics in this list. One of it being the Grusha. So, John, if you want to explain what Grusha does, it actually was a very fun card to play with.
Yeah, so Grusha, if I'm remembering correctly, and as I said, I need coffee, so let me actually pull it up so I'm saying it correctly here. So Grusha card has an ability where you draw cards until you have 5 cards in hand. If none of your Pokemon have any energy attached, you draw until you have 7 cards in hand. So since you're not playing any energy in the deck, you are never at a point when it's only going to draw until you have 5. You're always going to be able to draw up to 7. And so that's really nice because unlike Professor's Research, where you have to discard whatever you have in your hand to draw more cards, this allows you to draw up to 7 and gives you that ability. So, what's nice about that as well is in this you are playing a Bibarel line. So you're going to be able to draw up to 5, use some of those cards possibly, and then use Grusha to be able to draw up to 7. So it's giving you the ability to get a lot of draw out of your deck just by not playing any energy in the deck, which this deck doesn't need energy to begin with.
Yeah, and you also pair it with the Fezandipiti, you drop 3 more cards, so you can draw up to 7 plus 5 plus 3, 15 cards in one turn.
Yeah,
all play.
Yeah, you'd have to play all of them, but yes, you do have that ability to see that many in one turn. And then oh, we were both gonna say that, but then we do see Hassel being played as well. And so, Dean, do you want to explain what Hassel does?
So Hassel, it says that you can only use this card if your opponent were knocked out during your opponent's last turn, which playing a single prize deck, you're most likely going to get knocked out. You look at the top 8 cards of your deck, put up to 3 of them in your hand, and then you shuffle the rest. So taking advantage of playing lower HP single prize Pokemon, you're able to kind of cherry pick what you need and then save the rest of the cards for later. It's not like what's the card that I'm thinking of? Explorer's Guidance, where you look at the top 6, you take 2, discard 4. You're not losing resources that you potentially may need. For example, what if you use this card and you get all your Ancient Booster capsules? If you're playing Explorer Guidance, you're discarding some of those.
Right.
But with this card, you can save them for later and shuffle them back and hope you can draw back into them. So it's another interesting card that you can play. I know some decks in the beginning of the Stellar Crown or even the Twilight Masquerade format try to put this as a one-off just because of the potential of seeing cards and choosing what you need. But I like how it played in this deck. I actually liked it when I played it online. I was able to get what I needed because I used this very late in the game where you had a very low deck size anyway. So you're basically choosing what you needed at that specific time and then winning the game from there.
Yep. So it's definitely a fun deck. I've played a couple of games. I only got to play about 3 games with it, unfortunately, but I went 2-1 with it. How did you do with it, Dean?
I played 5. I went 2-3.
Okay.
Just first couple games were bad setup. I couldn't do anything. But I was able to beat a Roaring Moon with this list, and I was able to beat a Raging Bolt with this list, and just out-resourcing them. One thing to note is the Conkeldurr does have 180 HP, which doesn't seem high, but for attacks like Raging Bolt, it made him use more resources to knock me out compared to other more basic single prize decks. So I was able to slow them down enough for them not to be able to knock me out as quickly, and I was able to just get the 2 prize KOs as I can. I will say, this list plays the Grand Tree for the Ace spec. I have never used it in any of my games.
I used it once. I beat as we talked about, a Dragapult, and then I also beat a Raging Bolt as well. I used it in the Raging Bolt game, but I only got to use it one turn, and then, of course, Raging Bolt's going to put a Pokestop into the active, so that did lead it to be only used once. But yeah, I may look at switching that out. I would maybe look at switching that out for a Prime Catcher, just to be able to...
Yeah, I was thinking Max Belt may be good too, just in case if you can't get the Mochi, you can still do some heavy damage with it.
That's true. But definitely ways to play around with it. So I might play with the list on the showcase and maybe switch it up a little bit. Maybe do a game of each with the Grand Tree, the Max Belt, and the Prime Catcher, just to see which is maybe better, what we might get a use out of. But yeah,
and maybe even I would also think about adding the Hisuian Electrode, because it does go with the whole Zero Energy build, and you can go for weakness if you can, and if we can add in a Forest Seal, and it can just be a Forest Seal target to get the cherry pick the card you need to kind of finish out a game as well. So that's also an option.
Yep, can definitely see that. So, all right, well, that is it for what we had planned to talk about here. For all of our friends in the Tampa Bay area and the greater Florida area, please stay safe. This is a massive storm. It is going to hit wind shear and slow down, so hopefully we won't see too bad of effects. But please, everybody, stay safe. This is going to be a pretty big storm here, so definitely want to see you all out when it is safe, and see you at tournaments when that does occur. But stay safe, hunker down, and as I said, be safe. So that's it for me. Anything else you got, Dean?
Safe, make good choices. Going to tournaments isn't a priority. I know there's a big regional this weekend. If you can't go, don't worry about it. It's only a game. But for those who are going to Louisville, good luck. Can't wait to see what decks you all do, and what decks you all play, and how you all do. And I know I'm going to try to watch as much of it as I can. So hopefully it'll be a fun weekend for those who are attending.
Yeah. All right. Well, keep playing your sneaky decks through the seasons. Bye, y'all.
See ya.
Hey, all you rogues out there. We just wanted to take a quick second to shout out our sponsor and one of our home leagues at For Honor and Glory. They have all you need for your card game and TTRPG needs. Some upcoming events they have are on Saturday, October 5th, the TCG Monthly League Challenge. On Saturday, October 26th, the Monthly Video Game League Challenge. Saturday, October 26th, also a Surging Sparks TCG pre-release, as well as Sunday, October 27th, the Surging Sparks pre-release. And Sunday, October 27th, also the Pokemon Go Cup and Pokemon Go Challenge. Remember, you can always go over to forhonorandglory.com and use discount code ROGUE24. That's ROGUE24 at forhonorandglory.com to receive 10% off your entire online order. All right, have fun playing your sneaky decks.